In 1934, Adolf Hitler personally sketched out the design for a car. He described exactly how many people it should seat, how fast it should go, and precisely what it should look like. He said it should look like a beetle. That car became one of the most iconic and best-loved vehicles in automotive history, a symbol of freedom, of the counterculture movement, of peace and love and road trips and everything that feels harmless and joyful about the open road. And the story of how it got from Hitler's desk to streets all over the world is, honestly, one of the darkest and most disturbing origin stories in the entire history of business. Slave labor, stolen savings, a nursery where nearly every single baby died, and decades later one of the biggest corporate fraud scandals the modern world has ever seen. Be warned, this story is not for the faint of heart. This is the disturbing true story of Volkswagen. To understand how any of this happened, you have to go back to Germany after World War I, because the Germany that Hitler inherited when he rose to power was not a proud or prosperous nation, it was a broken one. After losing the war, Germany was forced to pay reparations totaling 132 billion gold marks, the equivalent of more than $500 billion in today's money. The consequences were catastrophic. Unemployment exploded, the government printed enormous quantities of money, and the currency became essentially worthless. At the worst point, it was literally cheaper to burn paper money for warmth in winter than to buy firewood with it. Ivan saw something different. The British Army desperately needed vehicles after 6 years of war, and the Volkswagen had been specifically designed to be easy to mass produce. By extraordinary luck, one single prototype had survived the bombing undamaged. Ivan painted it in army colors and sent it to headquarters. They sent back an order for 20,000 vehicles. 2 weeks later, they doubled it to 40,000. Getting from an order to actual production was a massive undertaking, but Ivan tackled every problem one at a time. He organized teams to clear rubble and repair machinery. He secured a supply of steel, glass, and raw materials from the Allied powers. He established assembly lines, and by the end of 1946, the factory had produced its first 10,000 cars. During the rebuilding process, his team discovered that the motorized flat wagons being used to move parts around the factory could, with modifications, be sold commercially. That accidental discovery eventually became the Volkswagen Type 2, the VW bus, the camper, the bully, one of the most beloved vehicle designs in history. By 1949, Ivan had fulfilled his military quota, established dealerships across Europe, and handed the company back to the German people. He had inherited an absolute lost cause and turned it into a functioning internationally trading business in just a few years. Through the 1950s and 60s, the Volkswagen Beetle and the VW bus became genuine global icons. By 1955, Volkswagen had sold its 1 millionth Beetle. By 1972, it became the best-selling car in the world. The VW bus became so deeply associated with the American counterculture and the anti-Vietnam War peace movement that it practically became the symbol of a generation. The same company personally commissioned by Adolf Hitler was now the poster child for hippie culture and peace and love, one of the most remarkable image transformations in the history of branding. In 1960, Volkswagen was privatized, and with that freedom came enormous ambition. They acquired Audi in 1964, Seat in 1986, Skoda in 1987, and by the turn of the century, they had added Bentley, Lamborghini, and Bugatti. The Volkswagen Group had become one of the most powerful automotive conglomerates on Earth. Then came one of the most extraordinary corporate plot twists in automotive history. In the early 2000s, Porsche, the same Porsche family whose founder Ferdinand had designed the original Volkswagen, began quietly buying Volkswagen shares. By 2008, they had accumulated enough stock and options to own over 74% of the company combined, though they had publicly insisted they had no intention of taking over. The secrecy of their buying had kept Volkswagen's stock price artificially high during the financial crisis, which led hundreds of hedge funds to short the stock, borrowing shares, and betting the price would fall. Then Porsche revealed the full extent of their ownership in a single announcement. The hedge funds realized in horror that the amount of Volkswagen stock freely available on the market was almost nothing. They scrambled to buy back shares to close their positions, but there were barely any to buy. Within 2 days, Volkswagen's share price rocketed from around €210 to over €1,000. It was described as the largest short squeeze in financial history. For 48 hours, Volkswagen was briefly the most valuable company in the world by market capitalization. Porsche's takeover ultimately failed when the German government blocked their final financing deal. Trapped under €10 billion of debt they had no way to repay, Porsche collapsed into crisis. And, in a stunning reversal, Volkswagen turned the tables, convincing Porsche's investors to redirect their money into Volkswagen, buying nearly 50% of Porsche and 3 years later acquiring the rest outright. What had started as Porsche trying to buy Volkswagen ended with Volkswagen buying Porsche. And yet behind all of this success, Volkswagen was hiding a secret that would erupt into one of the largest corporate fraud scandals of the 21st century. Around 2009, Volkswagen launched a major marketing push around their new clean diesel vehicles. The cars passed every emissions test and won environmental awards. They qualified for tax breaks. The industry celebrated them as a breakthrough. It was all a lie. Volkswagen's engineers had secretly installed software designed to detect when a car was being tested for emissions. During a test, the software switched the car into a low-emission mode: less power, less fuel, lower exhaust output. The car passed. The moment it was back on the road, the software switched back and the car began pumping out nitrogen oxide at levels up to 40 times what US regulations permitted. Nitrogen oxide is linked to air pollution, acid rain, asthma, cancer, and heart disease. Millions of people were driving cars that had been specifically engineered to deceive every safety test designed to protect them. It went completely undetected until 2014, when university researchers conducting independent road tests noticed the real-world numbers looked nothing like the official results. They reported their findings to US regulators, and the scandal known as Dieselgate exploded into public view. 11 million cars worldwide were affected. At least 30 executives at management level were believed to have known about the software for years. And when the cheating was first exposed internally, Volkswagen did not move to fix it. They attempted to improve the device so it would cheat more effectively. The total bill came to approximately $35 billion in fines, criminal penalties, and pollution mitigation costs. The CEO resigned. Volkswagen reported its first loss-making quarter in decades. They later admitted they had also tested diesel fumes on live monkeys in an attempt to prove the engines were clean. 1 year later, Volkswagen surpassed Toyota to become the world's best-selling car conglomerate. 1 year, on the list of the 10 best-selling cars in automotive history, Volkswagen has 3 of them. The company born from Hitler's personal request, built on slave labor, responsible for the deaths of nearly 400 infants, and caught committing one of the largest environmental frauds in corporate history, is today one of the most commercially successful companies on the planet. Whether that's a testament to the power of great products or a sobering reminder that accountability in the corporate world has limits, is something each viewer will have to decide for themselves. But one thing is certain. The next time you see a Volkswagen rolling quietly down the street, you will know exactly what lies beneath the surface.